This special episode of Addressing Gettysburg is brought to you without commercial interruption by Getty's Bike Tours. The best way to see the battlefield since 2005 has been by bike. That's a scientific fact. And Getty's Bike Tours provides the best bicycle tours in town. In fact, they provide the only bicycle tours in town. So call 717-752-7752 and let them know that you're a listener of Addressing Gettysburg and book a tour today. Listeners get a 15% discount. That's 717-752-7752. Now, on with the show.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg, the 159th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. Special, extraordinaire, bizarre, etc., etc. We're doing July 2nd, 1863 today, the second day of the battle. And joining us, we're sitting out on the Rose Farm, and joining us here is a bunch of horses, but also Mike Rupert, licensed battlefield guide extraordinaire. Hello, Mike.
How you doing?
Good.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Your debut episode came out a few weeks ago, and people really loved it.
Yes, what I've heard, yes, from actually people sending texts, emails, and like I just told you, people actually stopping me on the street, which is pretty cool.
And punching you. And no, stopping you on the street and complimenting you, and that's great. I've heard a lot about it. The number of downloads it's getting is for its first 3 days, it got like a ton of downloads, more than normal. So apparently the Bliss Farm is something that really interests people.
Good.
Yeah, and so that's good there. Also joining us, of course, is Eric, the producer. Hello, Eric.
Howdy.
And Joe, our cinematographer, the new addition to Addressing Gettysburg. Also, he does Peach Orchard Publishing. Joe, how do you introduce yourself to people when you meet them?
I tell everybody I am Six Questions cinematographer.
Right. And people look at you like, the hell are you talking about?
And then I say, I've got the dog. And they're
the dog,
okay,
Finn.
the dog.
Yes, of course.
We know you.
So Peach Orchard Publishing, follow him on YouTube. Joe's just going to join us. We're going to have, this is going to be a little bit more of a casual general overview here. Normally, as you know, we have two licensed guides that we like to, have discuss these here, but everybody's schedule is very tight. This is literally, what is this, June 29th that we're recording this, so we usually record them earlier in June, but we just didn't get around to it this year. So we've got one guide with us, but that's okay because it's Mike Rupert, and Mike's great and he can handle it on his own. And so we figured, well, let's just have Joe and we'll just have a general discussion about this instead. But of course, Mike is the expert, and that's what we're going to go with there. All right, so July 2nd, 1863. Let's rewind a little bit to before midnight.
Okay, how about we rewind towards the end of the first day? Did you guys already do that?
Well, we covered the end of the first day with Hancock coming up and all that stuff, but what I would like to get to is Meade arriving and what happens there, and then also what's Lee's plan by the time morning comes.
Okay, what's going to be going on here, Meade is going to arrive, first of all, day one. Meade is back in Taneytown, Maryland, 14 miles south of here. Whenever Meade arrives on the field, it's going to be sometime after midnight, the very early morning hours of day two, and he's going to go to where the generals are going to be gathered at the Evergreen Gatehouse. So Howard would be there. Some of the other generals who are a part of this whole action are going to be there, and he's going to start to get the lay of the land, if you will. He's going to wind up going out with one of his map guys, Payne, the famous Payne map, and he's going to wind up going up and down the lines and deciding where he's going to place his corps as they arrive.
So they meet at the Cemetery Gatehouse, not the Leicester House as the movie would have us believe.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, right. And then later he decides that's going to be his headquarters, the Leicester House. Okay, so Lee, on the other hand, what's going on in the Confederate
Lee's
lines
plan,
at night?
Something to consider here, overarching theme. Whenever you think about the battle here at Gettysburg, Union Army, anytime, all those battles that happened down in Virginia, General Lee winds up coming up against the Union Army. He beats the Union Army. The Union Army falls back to the other side of a river, or back towards Washington, D.C. However, right here at the end of the day one fight, the Union Army does not leave the battlefield. They go to Cemetery Hill, a far better defensive position they had ever had before. Lee notices that at the end of the first day. And he says, one of the famous remarks he makes at the end of the first day, if they are still there in the morning, I am going to strike them, which means this battle is still going to continue. Now, just like George Meade's army, the Confederate Army is still arriving too throughout the whole evening and for the better part of the second day here. And as they begin to fill in, Lee's plan earlier in the morning is going to wind up being based on reconnaissance that's done by, well, actually, that could be a whole nother show. I'm sure you've done it already. Captain Johnston.
Yep.
And anyways, Lee's, before he actually comes up with the plan, he's going to send Captain Johnston out. Why has Lee got to do this? Who's he still missing at this point in time?
Stuart.
You got it, okay. Stuart is still making his way back from Carlisle right now, so Lee doesn't have that valuable intelligence from his cavalry chief. So he sends out Captain Johnston about 4 o'clock in the morning. We estimate that Johnston gets back to Lee's headquarters somewhere around 8-ish, if you will. And somehow Captain Johnston is going to wind up missing a decent part of the Union Army, specifically Buford's 2,600 horsemen in and around the Peach Orchard area, part of the 12th Corps. I'm sorry, who's over there?
What are you talking on?
That's going. Oh, that
Third
is,
Corps or no, Geary?
Yeah, Geary. That is 12th Corps. As they are on the very foot of the northern slope of Little Round Top. He's going to miss the other parts of the Union Army as they're kind of beginning to mass, if you will, on Cemetery Ridge itself. So he goes back to Lee, and the information that he gives Lee is that the Union Army their line basically ends a little bit north of where the Pennsylvania Monument is today, and actually kind of stretches out partway on the Emmitsburg Road. And that's it. There are no Union troops on Little Round Top. There's no Union troops on the part of Emmitsburg Road, this southern part, if we will, that's just to the west of the Rose Farm that we're sitting at right now. So Lee starts off with faulty information. And his initial plan, as Longstreet's divisions arrive, we're talking about Hood and McLaws, continue to arrive on the battlefield. His plan is for them to be perpendicular to the Emmitsburg Road and just basically smash in, if you will, George Meade's supposed left flank.
Mm-hmm. But this plan is being made early in the morning.
Yes.
The information received early in the morning.
It's faulty in itself.
It's faulty in itself. And then, of course, what's going to happen is by the time the units get in place, so many hours have gone by that nothing is as it was.
Correct.
When Johnston came out.
Yeah, very
so,
different.
Okay, so what happens during the morning then?
The morning, there's a lot of shuffling troops, and you got to remember, the Confederates, Meade looks at his line. Let's go back to his line. Meade decides, based on what he sees, Cemetery Hill, incredible defensive ground there, especially on the western slope and the northern slope. He's going to continue to stack it with artillery throughout the day, builds his battle line. So remember, Cemetery Hill is going to wind up being his citadel, his fortress, if you will, of that line. Extends it all the way down. Cemetery Ridge, past the Pennsylvania Monument, all the way down to Little Round Top. That's the effective end of George Meade's line. Off to the right-hand side, you've got Culp's Hill, also very good defensive ground. Mm-hmm. So George Meade's plan for day 2, simply defense. Lee is in attack mode. He has to be in attack mode. That's his whole purpose for coming up here, is to fight the Union Army and beat them on northern soil. Remember the whole politics. You can't take that political pressure out.
Right.
That's what Lee wants here. So Lee is in attack mode. And what he winds up trying to figure out is, of course, he wants to just go up the road. But as these guys are filling in, Hood and McLaws are going to take some time to move in, and it basically takes until 4 o'clock in the afternoon on day 2 for these guys to get set. Part of that has to do, some people blame Longstreet. I really do not. I don't see Longstreet as being apathetic or slow. He is certainly a good soldier. He does what he's told. And by the way, as far as waiting for men, it is General Lee himself who allows Longstreet to wait for Evander Law to arrive on this field before he moves forward to get to attack. So
right.
Lee is part of all this, and Lee is involved as the Confederate Army is setting up on Seminary Ridge as we know it.
So the legend or the long believed whatever is that Longstreet had the slows, and he was just dragging his heels because he didn't want to do what Lee was ordering, and he was being a stubborn child and, not going into it full on. But the reality of it was he requested that they wait for Law's brigade, and Lee said yes.
Yes, and a couple other things to consider there. Don't forget, earlier in the morning, we got, the Confederates who were doing their different reconnaissances and such. Plus, think about this, Anderson's division, who most of it had arrived yesterday. They're not even positioned on Seminary Ridge until sometime around noon, maybe a little bit later, because it's going to be Wilcox who winds up bumping into Sickles' reconnaissance that Sickles makes once he arrives on this battlefield. So they're still filling in at that time.
Right. Okay. And so and also the orders issued to Longstreet didn't come till later in the morning, like late in the morning.
Yes. Yeah. It was not immediately. And one of the whole post-war things, and this comes out after Lee's death, of course, where they say that they're supposed to attack early on day 2 and then early on day 3 and all those sorts of things. But there's nothing that really backs that up.
Right. Okay, so Longstreet gets moving. And what happens along the way with him?
Along the way, as Longstreet's 2 divisions who are going to be making this attack, keep in mind, Pickett is just arriving. Pickett is not. That's the other division in Longstreet's corps.
Right.
He is not going to be part of this day 2 action. So we got Hood and McLaws, and as they're getting into position on the southern part of Seminary Ridge, they're going to start to crest over part of a hill, and the early units, or front units, I should say, are able to see the signalmen up on top for the Union Army up on top of Little Round Top. So Longstreet, one of his famous remarks, this simply won't do. They turn around and they do a countermarch that wastes about another hour and a half, if you will. So they don't get into position on the southern part of Seminary Ridge, and we call it Warfield Ridge once it passes the Warfield Farm, but it's the same terrain feature,
right,
if you will. So it takes them till 4 o'clock to get into position, and that means Confederates don't begin the attack on day 2 until 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
So what, in the meantime, is happening on the Union side?
Union side? Union side is filling in too. Little bit of, as far as our buddy Dan Sickles, we got basically the guys who fought on day 1, the 1st and 11th Corps for the Union Army. They're going to be centered around the northern part of Cemetery Hill, if you will. Off to the right, over on Culp's Hill, the 12th Corps is going to wind up connecting with them. That's the Union right. And then as we start to bend around the Cemetery Ridge side, the northernmost part of Cemetery Ridge, where it meets Cemetery Hill, that's going to be the Union Army 2nd Corps under Hancock. And then to Hancock's left, further in this area here, Dan Sickles is supposed to connect and then let his line of Cemetery Ridge extend down to Little Round Top, which would be the effective end of the line.
Basically replacing Geary's division.
Yes, yeah, because they went back over to Culp's Hill.
Right. So Geary's division was just kind of holding there in what would be, I guess, a thin line, because if it's really something that the 3rd Corps is going to eventually hold, Geary's only a division, so he had to stretch.
Yeah, and I think part of that is in the middle, from the end of the fighting on day 1 until things start moving in the morning, you got kind of hodgepodge. You got guys moving around everywhere at different times on the field till everybody gets situated, okay?
Right.
And they follow the order, okay? 12th on the right, 11th on the very northern part, 2nd, then the 3rd down to this area here.
We're mentioning corps and divisions and things like that. Mm-hmm. For the sake of people who are new to all of this stuff, and we might as well speak in Chinese or Greek or something like that when we say those words, really quick, give me an idea, or give the people an idea of what a corps is, a division, a brigade, and a regiment.
Okay, the way the armies are organized, they both organize the same way, but generally the Confederate bigger chunks have more numbers in them, if you will. So let's start at the very top. So a Union Army is made up of corps. No, let's go the other way. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to start the other way. I'm going to start with the building block.
Bottom up.
Yeah, we're going to go from the bottom up here.
Okay.
Building block, both guys, both armies, I should say, organized in the same way. They're going to wind up, these guys, when they sign up to fight for the North or the South, if you're sign up to fight for the North, you are fighting in order to preserve the Union. If you are fighting for the South, you are fighting to be your own independent country, separate from the United States. These guys do it in the same town, same county, same area. They know each other already. So these regiments, whenever they sign up in 1861, North and South, they already have a bond. 2 years here, we're more than 2 years here into the war. These guys have been fighting side by side with each other. The bonds between the men are even stronger. So that's your building block. Problem is, early on in 61, just on paper, average size of a regiment is going to be about 1,000 men. So, for example, if the first 1,000 men sign up and they become the 1st Virginia Volunteer Infantry, most of the Army is going to be infantry on both sides. If they wind up going to the second 1,000 men, they would be the 2nd Virginia Volunteer Infantry, and so on and so on. Now, by the time we get here to Gettysburg, average size of a regiment, both North and South, is going to be somewhere over 300 men. Now, a group of regiments is called a brigade. That can be anywhere from 3 to about 6 regiments. And whenever you have 2 or more brigades, that's going to be called a division. 2 or more divisions make up an Army Corps, which is a bigger chunk of the Army. For the Union side, the Army Corps are going to average about 10,000 men each. For the Confederate side, who only have 3 corps, are going to average 22,000 per Army Corps.
So,
and then whenever you have groups of corps, that makes up your Army.
So a Union Corps fighting against a Confederate Corps is always going to be outnumbered.
Yes. Oh, yeah. If they're both on the same part of the field in their entirety, yes.
Yeah. So when Sickles moves out later on in the afternoon of the 2nd, and he moves out to the Peach Orchard, he's got, what, 10,000 men?
Yeah, but just slightly over 10,000.
10,500, something like that. Yeah, okay. So he's got 10,000. Longstreet, and he's only got 2/3 of his corps. What's he coming in with?
He's coming in with about 14,000, because Pickett's not here. Hood and McLaws both have about 7,000 men. Rough numbers here. And whenever we do talk about this battle, we are using rough numbers.
Right.
Because to say down to the exact number, like 7,261. You don't know that. Okay.
Right. All right, but so now when you get down on the regimental level too, a Confederate regiment would
typically a little bit, about 40, 50 men on average, I would say larger than the opposing Union regiment.
But some of these Union regiments, though, they've got very small numbers, like 200.
Yes.
So, like, the average is 350 or something like that, but there's a lot of regiments that come in under that.
Yes, and then you do have some newer regiments, too, like the Vermonters and Lockwood's Brigade, who winds up joining the 12th Corps over there on Culp Hill. They've got over 600 in some of their regiments.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why you got to use average, and it's going to depend, of course, on the individual units.
Right, and that's why you got to read the monuments, too.
Yes, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, because then you get a big idea, or a better idea. All right, so let's get on back to the battle then. So Longstreet does his countermarch, and he gets back, or he gets out into this area, and what does he find?
As McLaws arrives on his part of Seminary Ridge, just on the other side of where we're sitting right now, he is absolutely awestruck, dumbfounded, that he thought he was going to be attacking up the Emmitsburg Road, and he finds the Union Army en masse right there along the Emmitsburg Road at the Peach Orchard. Absolutely astounded. So they're going to start setting up their artillery, and already they're going to be trading shots even before the infantry is ready to go off.
So he sees this, and he now has to continue with the infantry further south.
Yes.
But they do deploy the artillery?
Yeah, the artillery is going to get into position, and as they start firing, and this is going to probably be right about the time. It's tough to put timing to things, but I'm gonna try to do this. Sickles did not like his position that Meade assigns him on the bottom part of Cemetery Ridge. Just because something is a terrain feature, a mountain range or a ridge, doesn't mean it's even the whole way.
Right.
You got rises, you got dips, move to the left or to the right.
Yeah.
North of Little Round Top, you got a definitive dip there, right before the George Weichert farmstead.
Yep.
And Sickles complains to Meade all morning, doesn't like it. Meade tells him, you got to keep that same line. We got to be right next to each other. Key about Civil War fighting is what? We got to be right next to each other.
Yes.
Sickles will have enough of this, and by about 1:30 in the afternoon on day 2, Sickles is going to take his 10,000 men and start to move out to the Emmitsburg Road / Peach Orchard Plateau.
And he does so without orders.
Correct. Yes, he's definitely breaking orders here. However, Sickles believes And I kind of believe sincerely that he thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I just think it was a stupid right thing to do, but I mean, I get it.
I disagree.
Well, you disagree?
I disagree.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. No, it was. But do you think that he intended to do what it ended up doing, which was take the punch out of Longstreet's assault, or do you think he just wanted to get on the high ground?
Longstreet was coming.
No, but he knew Confederates were coming
Why?
because he sent people out there. He knew Confederates were out there.
Confederates over there.
Well, we know that there were Confederates over there, but
We do.
Yeah,
But
but
did
he
he?
didn't know.
Who, Sickles?
Right.
Oh,
But
yeah,
he- but
Sickles
he
said
had-
that.
Sickles' men bump into Wilcox over there at
Yeah.
Pitzer's Woods, so they know there's guys over there, but they have no idea that Longstreet's coming right down here.
No, he has no idea about that. But why wouldn't he assume that they would eventually, or at least try to get some artillery on the peach orchard?
Well, he does have artillery on the
No,
peach orchard.
no, the Confederates.
Oh,
Why is it? So he's trying to deprive them of that ground so that they
I
don't
know
put
that
their
he's
artillery
necessarily
on.
trying to deprive them of that ground. I think
Then why
he
take it?
understands that the known flank of the Confederate Army at that point is Pitzer's Woods.
Right.
And if he advances his corps the way he did, he's in a position to either assault that flank or threaten it, so that if anybody from that line advances towards, say, Hancock, the Third Corps is in a position to
smack
take
him.
him in flank.
I think.
Or at least sap that attack
That's-
of strength to try to defend that flank.
But do you think Sickles actually thought that?
I think if you look at the way he positions his corps, yeah, he probably did. Because he's heavy on the right and he's light on the left. So he doesn't assume that anybody's coming over here because he's only got Ward over at
Right.
Devil's Den and de Trobriand down here in the wheat field with big gaps
Yeah.
between them, right?
Uh-huh.
So what are you doing with that?
So why isn't
To
his?
me, that's a screen.
Mhm.
He is well aware that there is no cavalry on his left.
Right.
Buford's gone. He knows that. So, to my mind, he's doing the exact same thing with Ward and de Trobriand that, who is it, Early had to do with the Stonewall Brigade.
Oh, yeah,
And,
out on the
um,
Hanover and York Pike.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You have to backfill that with something. And in this case, you don't have cavalry available to you. You do it with infantry, but you have to use more infantry than you would have cavalry
Okay.
because it's not as mobile.
So the refusing then, so basically he makes that salient at the peach orchard and he
Sure.
refuses his left with Birney's division,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Because he has to do
'Cause he has
something
to protect
guard
his flank.
Sure.
Right. So he is open to the idea that some Confederates could come further south.
Sure, that's always
Right.
a possibility.
Right. So, but that's what I'm saying is so that he doesn't know Longstreet in particular is coming. Although, wait, didn't the Signal Corps station on Little Round Top see them?
They saw them.
Yeah. So, and that didn't get to Sickles?
The glint in the tree line, right?
I'm not sure
No,
what
not
did
that.
or
No,
didn't.
that's
Yeah,
much later.
He
I'm
saw
not
the
sure.
dust cloud of them on the
Yes.
march.
Yeah,
they
there
saw
you
it.
go. And there were several messages that were sent up about those dust clouds that wound up going back to Meade. Whether or not it got back to Sickles, I'm not
Well, so we don't know if it got
Exactly.
to Sickles or not.
Right.
Okay.
Remember, the Signal Corps is reporting directly to Army
To Army headquarters, yeah.
not individual corps commanders.
Right. So it's up to Army headquarters to notify
Correct.
everybody below
And
them.
if we look at the amount of communication that's actually taking place between the Third Corps and Army headquarters on July 2nd, it seems to me that it's not outside the realm of possibilities that information never got down to Sickles headquarters.
Okay.
And
The
here's
horses
what,
were just fighting.
they were crazy. Here's what I think.
Yeah.
So I don't think it matters. I mean, I think that's a great point, but the proof is kind of in the pudding. Sickles did disrupt the attack.
He did,
so
yeah.
Crazy Pants Sickles, whatever you want to say about him, he put his corps out there in the peach orchard, and as Longstreet is doing his on-echelon attack on July 2nd, it is getting disrupted. Sickles or
Absolutely.
Longstreet is not able what he
Longstreet
wants
even
to
said
do
that after the war.
because Sickles is out there. Sickles had bad press because he was in Hooker's camp.
Yeah.
So I think everybody came after Sickles at the end of the battle. But Sickles was up against Robert E. Lee's strategy, and he was the best strategist of the war, one might argue, and he's up against the tactics of Longstreet and McLaws and Hood, who are some of the best tactical fighters in the entire war, and the Army of Northern Virginia arguably has the best infantry ever, anywhere.
Well,
Motivated killers.
Right.
And Sickles disrupted them. Sickles stopped their attack, and the attack on the 2nd failed because Sickles was out there and because Meade was able to reinforce the line.
Absolutely, totally agree. My point is he didn't have the orders to do it, and it was a stupid move because what did he lose? Like 45% of his men?
Oh, yeah,
50%
close to 50.
of his,
Close to 50. Not to mention all those who came in support.
But it worked.
Right, exactly. Well, yes, it worked, but I think it would have worked anyway.
Keep in mind that whatever
Like,
Sickles
they
and
wouldn't have won.
Longstreet say about each other after the war
They were drinking
is
together when they did it.
done through a very, very biased lens.
Of course.
They both need somebody who is quote unquote unbiased and independent to validate their actions here at Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And who better to do that than Sickles for Longstreet and Longstreet for Sickles? Longstreet is basically excommunicated from the Confederate veterans after the war because he, God forbid, he became a Catholic and then a Republican.
Yeah.
Right? Sickles already is fighting for his own reputation basically as soon as his leg gets ripped off over at the Trossel barn.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at that stuff. But something else you said, and now I've lost it.
No, Joe. Joe.
I'm sure it was
Can we back up a second here?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. To your point, Eric, I just want to throw this out there. Okay, Sickles and Birney's division is going to arrive on the Emmetsburg Road there behind you.
Mm-hmm.
The first glimpse that he has of this part of the battlefield is what we see right over there, which is going to be the Emmetsburg Road, Peach Orchard Plateau. Okay, so Sickles sees that even before he goes into position. So he sees the nature of that ground there. Where is he ordered to go? He's ordered to go back on the southern part of Cemetery Ridge, connect with and be anchored there at Little Round Top. However, again, he's got that dip there. So he already saw that plateau. And would you say it's a valid reason that one of the reasons why Sickles does go out there is because it is a plateau, and if the Confederates get that, they can certainly dominate his position on the lower part of Cemetery Ridge?
It is a far better position to employ artillery than the line that he is assigned to cover.
Yeah. And so I would say that is certainly one of the justifications in his mind. Granted, he doesn't have that military mind, but in his mind to actually go out there.
And I would argue, with your point, that, that's probably his, biggest reason for moving forward. I don't know that he consciously set himself up the way he did to be on A.P. Hill's flank, but that is what happened if you look at it, right? I don't know that he did that consciously, but he most certainly moved out there because it's a better artillery platform. I
mean, your analysis of it sounds to me like a guy who's been in the military and understands these things. With hindsight, I don't think... I know Sickles, even though he wasn't military trained, he was in the Army long enough to get a few things. I get that.
But play a lot of Call of Duty.
Well, that's where all of my military strategy understanding comes from.
Perfect.
It's video games. All right. So okay. Moving on then from the whole Sickles thing. Regardless of why, Sickles is out there.
He's out there.
He's out there at the Peach Orchard. His line, as Eric pointed out, the left with Ward's brigade is resting on Devil's Den, and then work our way up to the Peach Orchard from there.
De Trobriand is very haphazardly placed in and around the wheat field area. Moving up to the Peach Orchard proper is going to be Graham's brigade, who actually makes the bend or the corner, if you will, at that Peach
salient
Orchard.
there.
The salient.
Now, wait, before you move on to the rest of it, for people listening at home, if you're looking at a map, I suggest you look at a map when we talk about this stuff, or for those of you who just know the ground really well, from de Trobriand's brigade to Graham's brigade, there's a big gap, as Eric pointed out before.
Yes.
So I just want people to keep that in mind as we go forward. Okay, keep going.
And then Humphrey's division is basically going to be Sickles' right, if you will. And Billy Brewster's, New Yorkers, Sickles' old Excelsior Brigade is going to be in between Graham and the end of Humphrey's line, which is going to be Joseph Carr's brigade. And in support, now Humphreys is actually the only military commander in Sickles' Corps. Birney is not... Birney actually does very well, and he does very well learning on the fly, if you will. But Sickles and Birney are not your typical West Point generals, if you will, whereas Humphreys is. Okay, Humphreys is the one with that real military experience. And when Humphreys eventually gets the order to go all the way out to the Emmitsburg Road, he's going to put those 2 brigades in front, and then he's going to put his 3rd brigade, George Burling, in support. However, he's not going to get to keep Burling in support.
Burling is going to get cannibalized.
Chopped up big time, if you will.
And not by the enemy, by their own people,
Yeah.
as reinforcements to go and plug different holes in the lines,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens with Meade and Sickles?
Meade and Sickles. So Sickles does go out there, and we're not going to get into micro movements here. Okay, I'm just going to do big chunks, if you will.
People are just going to have to subscribe and listen to the show.
Because I could say a lot on
Yeah.
Humphreys' division alone. Okay,
Yeah.
but we'll just say all 10,000 men are out there. Half the salient, the Bend, and Sickles' line is right at the Peach Orchard, goes all the way over to Devil's Den. Of course, west of Little Round Top there. The right-hand side of Sickles' line goes all the way down the Emmitsburg Road, the other 5,000 men, and they're just kind of out there in the open. And then what Meade is going to find out, my best guess is going to be sometime, maybe a little bit after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He goes out there at 1:30. Sometime around 3 o'clock, this word gets back to George Meade at his headquarters. And by this time, Sickles is he sees the Confederates, of course, moving into position and such. Further down, way further down than what he had seen earlier with the reconnaissance from Wilcox and the 3rd Maine, and the 1st U.S. Sharpshooters over there in Pitzer's Wood. So Sickles himself is riding over to headquarters. Meade's got the information that Sickles moved out to the Emmitsburg Road. Meade is going to order Sickles, don't even get off your horse. Let's go see your position out here. And as you might imagine, George Meade is probably the most furious that he ever was in his entire life. He goes out there, of course, in the Peach Orchard proper, the Peach Orchard itself. Sickles, commented about, this being a nice artillery platform, if you will. However, at this point, he's in some places less than 600 yards away from those Confederate cannons that are setting up.
Right. That's close.
That's very close. Oh, yeah, especially for a cannon fight, that is real close.
But, I mean, that's the thing I think people need to, we need to impress upon them is that from his line on the Emmitsburg Road, the Peach Orchard, and the whole line there, to the Confederate line is not very far.
No, it's not very far.
We walked it
all.
on Sunday. We did a tour with Jim Hessler and Eric Lindblade from the Battle of Gettysburg podcast, and we walked that field in 8 minutes. Yeah. And we were kind of going at a leisurely pace. Granted, no one was shooting at us and everything like that, but, I mean, a determined brigade, at a good time at marching along.
A few minutes.
Could get there in a couple minutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at least you can get to the skirmish line before you have to pause or whatever. But the point is, it's very close.
Okay. So George Meade and Sickles are having this conversation. I am sure that George Meade is absolutely cussing Dan Sickles down at this point in time. Sickles actually becomes apologetic, so I'll just pull my guys back. George Meade knows that's absolutely impossible because while those two guys are in that Peach Orchard, those Confederate artillery shells are going to start flying into Sickles' salient, his awkward line, if you will, and also already further up, they're already going to start throwing shells towards Hancock's line. Artillery's purpose is to help the infantry take and hold ground. That kind of gives you a little indication on where the infantry is going to be coming next. George Meade knows those guys, Sickles could not get out of there. And by the way, George Meade doesn't give a rip about Dan Sickles, but he does care about those 10,000 men put in that bad spot. Right. George Meade tells him he's going to give Sickles whatever help he can. He's going to give him a whole extra 22 cannon, another extra brigade of artillery from the reserves. That's going to be Freeman McGilvery's, and he's going to fill in that gap between basically Graham and de Trobriand in the Wheatfield area.
Okay, so that's along Wheatfield Road, right after you pass the Peach Orchard. Yes,
that's why you see all those cannons there.
Yeah.
Notice all those cannons along the Wheatfield Road are primarily pointing south. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, as more men arrive on the battlefield, specifically the 5th Corps, they're going to wind up helping Sickles hold this line between the Wheatfield and even in and around the further up where that gap is. They even start to help further up with Graham's line there at the Peach Orchard. So they're starting to start to fill in everywhere. They're going to go into the Stony Woods on the other side. That's going to be all 5th Corps guys who are trying to hold the northern edge of the western edge of the wheat field, if you will. So we got chaos going on as these guys are arriving. And really, I guess if you want, the bottom line is this. Sickles basically holds. He goes out there at 1:30 in the afternoon. He doesn't get pushed off that position until just before 6 o'clock. Okay? These Confederate attacks, as they begin far all the way down with Hood's division, Evander Law on the very end. And when Evander Law's brigade steps off, they're going to kind of wind up going off in different directions because their division commander, John Bell Hood, gets hit very early, and there's no overall direction. So basically they go wherever they see the Union men. Some of the Alabama guys are going to actually chase the 2nd U.S. Sharpshooters up Big Round Top, and then they're going to wind up facing off the famous fight between Vincent's brigade and part of Law's Alabama Brigade. The Texas Brigade winds up getting split up. They kind of go off in different directions. Some go to 4th and 5th will go towards Little Round Top, and then the 1st and the 1st Texas and the 3rd Arkansas wind up going to the upper part of Devil's Den. So they're going to start hitting the end of Sickles' line, if you will. And even as the reinforcements are coming, like the 5th Corps is the one who saves Little Round Top, they're also hitting in that area as well.
And so this is known as an echelon attack. What does that mean?
An echelon means, think of going up steps or going up a ladder. Instead of all those Confederate brigades moving at the same time, they're going to step off at 4, then 4:30, then 5, then 5:30. 6:30, all the way up Seminary Ridge, hitting the Union line on Cemetery Ridge.
Okay. And the way Longstreet has the brigade stacked is in 2 lines?
He has, Hood and McLaws are double brigades deep.
Right.
Once you get to Anderson, and this is could be one of the reasons why the attack kind of peters out, if you will, because now it's only a single brigade that's coming across. And, of course, that's going to start with Wilcox.
Now, those 2 brigades that are, one in front of the other, they're not going at the same time.
No, but they wind up getting mixed up at some points.
Right.
They're going to get stalled at the wheat field, a little bit mixed up and around the Devil's Den area, but it's not continuous.
And is the idea of that is that the first line goes in, breaks the line, does as much damage as they can. The second line comes in fresh and pushes past that breach. Is that the idea?
Now the word in echelon, I don't know if it was ever actually ordered to say that they were going to do that, but effectively that is what the Confederates did in their order of attack. I would say the reason why you do that, one of the theories, I'm not a military theorist or anything like that, but the idea is so you have one brigade hit part of the enemy's line. And one of the things that they're hoping on, that some of the guys next to them will go help those guys who are under attack,
right,
which weakens the next part of that line. So whenever they hit, maybe they might have a chance of breaking through.
Right. So, okay, so you answered a different question, but yes. So basically the idea of an echelon attack is that when you make contact with the enemy on the far left flank, they will send men from a little further up that aren't engaged to help them, as you just said.
Right.
But then also that second line, now this isn't necessarily part of an echelon attack, I'm assuming, to have it double brigaded.
It has more meat.
But it has more meat to it, right. So that first, group, they're going to do the hard fighting, not necessarily the hard fighting, but probably the hard fighting.
Yeah.
And then that second group is going to come in and deliver the knockout blow, basically.
You could say that,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
That's what happens with Barksdale and Walford's Georgians.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. All right. So that begins. Now, Little Round Top. Everybody, Little Round Top, Little Round Top. We got to talk about Little Round Top. Most important hill on the battlefield, right? And Lee said, I must have that hill, didn't he?
No, he didn't.
Oh.
No, it wasn't supposed to be part of this.
Wait, what? So wait, Little Round Top wasn't the most important piece of real estate in the Battle of Gettysburg. How does that work? Please explain that to me. Why do we love Little Round Top so much today?
It's a great view.
It is a great view, exactly. But as far as fighting goes, it wasn't the objective of the Confederates.
No, the objective of the Confederates is to break the Union line. And even if the Confederates would have... Now, granted, I'm not going to take anything away from
No.
Vincent,
No.
or
Chamberlain.
Weed's brigade. But nonetheless, even if the Confederates would have occupied Little Round Top for a period of time, you still had the entire Sixth Corps, some 12,000 odd men for George Meade's army, the last of his army that is still arriving in the afternoon of day 2. The fight for Little Round Top would have just been longer. The Confederates did not have enough men to hold that hill indefinitely.
So, okay. Before Hood's assault begins, what units are up on Little Round Top?
Before it begins, there's actually nobody up there initially.
Except for
the Signal Corps, the flag
Signal Corps,
the flag wavers.
Right. So the Signal Corps is waving flags up there, and General Warren goes to check it out. Right.
Yeah, there are numerous theories for this. The one that I accept is this: whenever Meade and Sickles are riding down to go check out his position in the peach orchard, he's going to tell Warren, go up on the hill, see what's going on, fix the problem, basically.
Okay.
Warren gets up there. What does he see? He sees that Confederate line all the way down Seminary Ridge, all the way past the Philip Snyder farm, and no Union men on that hill.
So Warren is who?
Warren is the chief engineer on George Meade's staff for George Meade's Union Army.
Right. So he's going down there to give it an engineer's eye view.
Right.
And report to Meade what he sees. But what does he see? So he sees the Confederates down there, as you pointed out, past the Snyder farm. And then, Slider farm.
Philip Snyder.
Snyder, okay.
That single White House that's kind of all by itself. The
one
with
across,
the outhouse.
Yeah, the Snyder farm, right, okay.
Yeah. To the as you're on Little Round Top and you see that tiny White House with the outhouse,
yes.
To the left of that is where Hood's 7,000 men are.
Right, so that overlaps Ward's brigade.
Oh, yes, yeah, immensely.
Yeah, so Ward's brigade, again, ladies and gentlemen, is down on Devil's Den.
It ends at the top of Devil's Den, up on top.
And the Confederates could easily walk right past him and not be bothered because there's no Union troops in their way. And Warren sees this, and he is appalled.
It's more like, we got to do something here kind of thing.
Okay, so he's got to do something. What does he do?
He's going to send out couriers to the division commander. This is actually, I believe it was for James Barnes, who's the 1st Division of Sykes' 5th Corps. Send brigade to that hill to occupy it.
Okay, now let me pause you real quick there. Has the fighting started at this point?
The artillery fire has started, I would say, for sure.
So the infantries have not yet engaged with each other. So Barnes is moving up on orders to go and reinforce Sickles. Is that what's going on?
Yes.
And so he's coming in, on the Wheatfield Road?
Yeah,
or down
from the Wheatfield Road. They kind of scooted off the Hanover Road, crossed over the Taneytown Road to get into the area between the Taneytown Road and right where we are.
Okay. Wait, what about the Hanover Road? What do you mean the Hanover Road?
The 5th Corps came up the Hanover Road before they made the bend to come over here.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, they had been in McSherry's town, so they came across the Hanover Road.
Okay.
But they went into reserve over on the Spangler Farm.
Yeah, the George
Powers
Spangler
Hill,
Farm.
Yeah, that area.
That's where they came from to come over here.
Right. Okay, so what happens then when the courier meets with Barnes, or does he not meet with Barnes?
I don't think we know if he meets with Barnes, but the courier winds up getting intercepted.
Okay.
Intercepted by famous Colonel Strong Vincent. At least this is one of the stories. Vincent is kind of the exception to the rule, if you will. He's one of those natural leaders, and he actually has a natural military mind and has no problem taking initiative. And he tells the courier that I will take the responsibility of taking my brigade to that hill. So he takes his 1,400 men up to Little Round Top for their date with infamy,
Destiny,
if you will. Destiny.
So this is so you got Sickles earlier, who disobeys orders, moves out to the peach orchard, and slaughters basically half of his corps.
Right.
Then you have Vincent, who acts without orders.
Correct.
And he's a hero. Nobody debates whether Vincent was right or wrong. Do they?
I don't think so. No,
I haven't heard it.
I don't think so. He did the right thing. What he did made sense, though, and what he did, I think, would have wound up happening anyways. Except it happened a lot sooner because he had no problem taking that initiative.
Right, but when they get up there, they don't have much time before the Confederates attack.
No, they don't.
So had he not done that, then maybe it would have been a Union brigade having to fight to take
Little
the
Round
top of
yes.
Little Round Top.
Yeah, or several Union brigades trying to take Little Round Top. Yeah.
So, I mean, him breaking orders worked. And then, of course, he dies, so they don't
Right.
get to court-martial him or punish him. They promote him.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But, of course, in his brigade is which regiment led by which famous colonel?
Oh, they're all, I think they're all famous.
Yeah.
But, of course, on the very end. By the way, where does he place this brigade? He places this brigade on where the attack threat is. It's the flank of that hill, which is the southern slope.
Right.
So off on the extreme left is going to be Joshua Chamberlain, the 20th Maine. Right next to them is going to be Orpheus Woodward in the 83rd Pennsylvania. To their left, to their right is going to be the 44th New York, the famous Castle Monument with Rice, and then 16th Michigan in Norwich and something. The guy who commands them is out on the end. They're the ones who are out in the open.
Right.
And a lot of people know about the whole situation with the 20th Maine and Joshua Chamberlain because of Killer Angels, the movie, and all that sort of thing. But actually, 16th Michigan actually has a more desperate problem, almost, I would say, close to being at the same time.
Yeah, because they're on the right flank, and no one is to the right of them.
Correct.
The nearest...
And they're out in the open.
Right. So the nearest brigade that's close to them would be Ward's brigade.
Who is down past the valley and on top of Devil's Den.
Yeah, there's a big gap, in other words, between Vincent's brigade, between Vincent's right and Ward.
Absolutely.
And what happens in that gap? Do the Confederates exploit that at all?
They do. They do try, and this is where they're going to get some part of the Union artillery. 2 of James Smith's guns. 4 get up on top of Devil's Den on Hawks Ridge there. 2 guns go in the valley, of course, to cover exactly what you're talking about. The 6th New Jersey, one of the Burling's regiments get parceled out. They're going to be in that area too. The 40th New York is going to be brought over. So the Union Army is kind of able to hold the Plum Run Valley there, which is in between Little Round Top and Hawks Ridge, which is the upper part of Devil's Den. So they are held there for a time until, of course, the wheat field falls.
Okay, so we don't know though. The fight. I guess the fight. Let me put it like this: the fighting at Little Round Top, fighting at Devil's Den. Are they happening at the same time, or what's happening first? Do we really?
I think
really sure?
We're not really sure, but I would say very close to being the same time.
Okay.
Because essentially, as Hood's division comes off of Warfield Seminary Ridge there, the whole 7,000 men are going to go towards wherever they see the Union men. They see them up on top of Devil's Den. They're going to see them, of course, beginning to mass there on Little Round Top as well. And basically, they just go where the enemy is. So I would say it would have to be very close or very nearly the same amount of time that Devil's Den, upper part of it, the valley between them, and Little Round Top get attacked.
My guess would be Devil's Den was first contact. What do you say, Joe?
I think Devil's Den is out there, and you can't skip it, because if you skip Little Round Top, if you skip Devil's Den and just hit the Peach Orchard, then you have all those Union troops on your flank.
Of course.
So you can't.
Derek, what do you think? Which gets hit first?
Yeah, I mean, excepting any skirmishers that are out on the Bushman or Slider
Right,
farms,
take them out of the equation.
Yeah, it's almost certainly the wheat field.
Or Devil's Den.
Devil's Den.
Yeah.
Or the Triangle Field, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be in front of
right
Devil's
in front of
Den.
that.
Yeah. So, okay, so I think we all have made that decision, and so let the record show that we've decided that Ward's brigade was hit first.
Okay.
It's now official.
What, by 15 minutes? Whoopie ding dong.
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, it's first. Well, you figure, they was the 15th Alabama
15th
goes up
and 47th.
goes up
and the 4th.
Big Round Top and hangs out for a bit.
Yeah, I guess before they wind up joining with the 4th and 5th Texas.
But meanwhile, are there sister regiments from their brigade that got mixed up? Now they're fighting at Devil's Den.
The 44th and 48th Alabama kind of wind up trying to go into the Plum Run Valley there. And then 1st Texas, 3rd Arkansas of the Texas Brigade go towards the Devil's Den, the upper part of Devil's Den.
Right, okay. All right. Enough about the trivial nonsense. We don't really care. Okay, so take us then from there. So well, actually, let's just do this. The wheat field Okay, we'll move along to the wheat field. Very complicated. And we've done, I think, 2 episodes about the wheat field, haven't we, Eric? I feel like we did one in the wheat field and then another one with someone else.
I know we did one for sure.
Yeah, we did at least one, ladies and gentlemen. Go back and look.
We did do a second.
Well, maybe we didn't. I don't remember. But anyway, the point is, we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty of the wheat field. Bird's eye view. What's going on in the wheat field? Why is the wheat field such a big deal? Did Lee say, I must have that wheat field?
No, but the wheat field winds up being such a big deal is basically because the wheat field is the back door to Dan Sickles up there to Peach Orchard.
Okay.
And so as Confederate units start to, by the way, Anderson, Tig Anderson is the one who's going to be fighting on the Confederate side. He's going to be joined by eventually Semmes. He's going to be joined by eventually part of Kershaw as well. Some of Benning's Georgians will get in that area as well. So Confederates are kind of massing, if you will, on the southernmost end of the wheat field and then the kind of like the western corner initially. And as they're pushing that way, Union, of course, is pushing from the Wheatfield Road. De Trobriand holds for a time. He's going to wind up getting pushed out, and then Caldwell comes in. That's Hancock's 2nd Corps. Cross Kelly, Zook and Brook, another 3,000-plus men. They're going to wind up pushing the Confederates out. They actually go way too far. And then Confederates are going to regroup, push them back. And then as they get pushed back, they're going to give up the wheat field to the Confederates there for a time. Tilton and Schweitzer of the Barnes's division of the 5th Corps are going to wind up fighting on the western, what we call Stony Hill, those woods right there. They come in and out, we think, 2 times. It's not really clear, and this is where everything starts to get muddy. And then you're going to have, they do momentarily, Schweitzer's brigade does come to about the middle of the wheat field again. Confederates begin to mass, if you will, kind of encircle. Barksdale, who blew through Dan Sickles at the Peach Orchard proper, coming behind him is a fresh brigade of Georgians. Remember how you mentioned that how the one brigade can do the heavy fighting? That's going to be Barksdale. He kind of veers towards Humphrey's division. And the Peach Orchard's already clear, so Wofford just goes right through the Peach Orchard, right through the Stony Hill area, and is going to wind up clearing out some U.S. regulars who have moved into the Wheatfield area. U.S. regulars, essentially Burbank's brigade, winds up getting almost entirely surrounded on 3 sides, as well as Schweitzer, who kind of got stuck in there as well. Once Wofford pushes everybody out, the Wheatfield is in Confederate hands. This is going to be a fight that lasts from about 4:30 until about 7:30 on day 2.
I hope you were looking at maps, ladies and gentlemen, when listening to that, because that was a lot of information there. But yes, now you mentioned Barksdale's brigade. He's kind of moving, so Wofford is going straight east, basically.
Yes,
for all intents and purposes, and Barksdale is going to start going northeast.
Yes.
And he has no one behind him. Wofford was supposed to be behind him, correct?
Correct.
So he's got no support. So this is where I think it breaks down, because he has no one behind him. And then the next in line is now going into Anderson's division of A.P. Hill's Corps, right? Wilcox is next, who's also got no one behind him.
Correct.
Now, Wofford's men, they go straight east through the Peach Orchard and into the wheat field and everything.
Right.
They're all excited. Yippee.
Yes.
Look at this clear path we're going to push through.
Maybe Eric could fill in a little bit here, because once Wofford's Georgians come through the wheat field, they're going to get stopped in the Plum Run Valley by who?
Oh, man, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's the reserves.
Oh, the Pennsylvania Reserve.
But it's not just Wofford. It's
Wofford, the entire Confederate Army.
Remnants of Kershaw,
pieces of others.
Yeah, it's like four separate brigades or parts of them anyway.
And the reserve single-handedly fended them off.
Yes.
Yes. But no, so to me, that's where it kind of loses steam, because what happens with Barksdale? He's going to northeast, and then he gets into that little what do we call it?
The Cadore-Trossel Thicket.
Thicket, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. The Cadore-Trossel Thicket, and he's met by Union troops.
Yes, Hancock is going to send. Well, first of all, he's going to be met by a couple things. When the Union artillery starts to pull off of the Wheatfield Road, that part of the salient, if you will, they're going to try to begin to form new lines back there on Cemetery Ridge where they're supposed to be. Now, it's very haphazard, very irregular.
Right.
But General Hancock, by this time, General Dan is out of the picture. Dan Sickles is gone. He's off the field. Hancock is going to take over the whole Cemetery Ridge line. He's going to send down George Willard's New Yorkers. George Willard's New Yorkers, pretty sure we all believe that they're the ones who put the bullets in Barksdale. That's going to be somewhere near the thicket. Once Barksdale goes down, that's basically whenever Mississippi is going to back off.
Right. So that puts an end to that.
Yeah.
And now Wilcox to the north of him. What happens with him?
Wilcox's right is going to wind up getting hit by some of those regiments in George Willard's. They're actually able to fire into some of Wilcox's men on their right. The middle part of Wilcox is going to wind up being open. The Wilcox's left is going to be kind of held back by guns of Thomas's battery, 6 Napoleons, fairly close range. They're kind of pounding into Wilcox. By the way, on Wilcox's left is going to be that very small Florida brigade, if you will. Okay, and the same thing. They only got just over 700 men. They're going to wind up getting held up by the guns and some of the other regiments to getting fed into that area, if you will. However, the middle of Wilcox is going to be kind of open, if you will. And this is that famous point in time where Hancock is going to come down Cemetery Ridge. He's going to see the small regiment, or at least small regiment at that point in time, because some of the companies were detailed off to other duties, but this is the 1st Minnesota of only 262 men who are going to be ordered to charge right into that entire Wilcox's Alabama Brigade, which is going to be somewhere around 1,700 men, I would gather.
In
that same thicket, by the way, they get stopped in that same thicket.
Right there, right. So the attack is going to continue up north all the way through A.P. Hill's entire corps, right? Rhodes's division is going to get involved in Ewell's corps. No. Oh, I'm doubly confused now.
Okay, so next, who's after David Lang's Floridians? You're going to have that fiery general, Ambrose Ranswright. Ranswright's Georgians are going to be next, and as Ranswright's Georgians cross the Emmitsburg Road to the left of those Floridians, they're going to wind up going past, most famously, they capture some of the cannon in Brown's Rhode Island Battery, and they actually make it all the way to the Union Wall on Cemetery Ridge. And that part of the line that they're going to wind up making to... Do you want me to stop till the truck?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
That's fine. It's the sounds of the battlefield.
A pickup truck, okay. So Wright actually does make it to the Cemetery Ridge line proper where the Union men are. This is going to be just to the south of the copse of trees. Wright, however, doesn't have any support coming from his left. On his left is supposed to be Posey's Mississippians, and really only the 48th Mississippi is going to join Wright's Georgians in the attack on the Cemetery Ridge line. The rest of that Mississippi brigade gets hung up around the Bliss Farm at this point in time. And then, so the other Confederate units further north, up Seminary Ridge, don't wind up moving. That's going to be Mahone, and then none of the Confederate units from Rhodes brigades, Rhodes Division, his brigades are going to wind up being in the area of Long Lane, which is kind of just to the southwest of town there, but none of those guys move forward either.
So it basically peters out then.
Yeah, and Wright can't break through. Now that's one of the controversies. I think we got 4 main controversies right now, but that's one of them, that Wright actually broke through the Union line there. That's a show in itself. But basically, Wright can't stay there. He's got to retreat back.
Right, okay. Now, how long does that whole action, Longstreet's whole assault, how long do you think that takes when the troops step off to the end?
I'd say from about close to 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yeah. Well, remember, there's no daylight savings time, so it gets dark a little bit after 8 o'clock.
So so from 4 to 8, basically. And then that's it. Everybody goes to bed, right? Nothing happens on July 2nd after that.
No, where you got
No?
the Union right.
Oh,
Yeah, you
what's
do.
going on over on the right?
On the right, we have Culp's Hill.
Okay.
Let me set up Culp's Hill?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Union right, we mentioned early on that the 12th Corps is going to be there, but also you have the Union 11th and 1st Corps who fought on day one. What's left of them are going to be manning the uppermost part of Upper Culp's Hill. The Culp's Hill fight is pretty confusing because Culp's Hill is actually two hills, Lower Culp's Hill and Upper Culp's Hill.
Or as some people,
Oh, the Spangler.
the Spangler Hill. Now, you know,
Culp's
this is a new thing.
Say upper and lower. Okay. Upper and lower.
Okay. I just like controversy, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're going to be over there, and one of the brigades on the upper part of Culp's Hill is going to be led by a guy named George Sears Green, the oldest Union general, 62 years old. He's one of those tough old Army guys, and he believes in the value of fortifications, breastworks, if you will. So he's going to order early in the morning on day 2. Am I allowed to back up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you have to set up Culp's Hill. Yeah.
Because things happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
You can't say it all at the same time.
Exactly.
So 8 o'clock, the 12th Corps is going to occupy that hill. And Green's men, he's got about 1,400 guys, 5 New York regiments in the middle part of the hill. And he orders his men to start cutting down trees, stacking up rocks, digging up dirt. Still building breastworks in front of their line there. And pretty soon, this is going to wind up spreading like wildfire. All up and down Culp's Hill, from McAllister's from McAllister's Woods, is what I meant to say.
Woods.
From McAllister's Woods, that's on the other side of Spangler Spring, up Lower Culp's Hill, up into the Saddle, all the way up to Upper Culp's Hill. Even the Union men who fought on day 1, they're going to be building fortifications from the morning all the way until 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Now, pause for a second. You said breastworks. You often hear people call them trenches, and you also hear earthworks. What is the difference between all of them, and why are those breastworks and not any of the other things?
Because that's about how high they're going to be.
To your breasts?
Yes.
Okay. So
right.
They're built on top of the ground.
They're built on top of the ground, but you got a little bit of overlap here. And again, I'm not a military guy. Maybe military terms are different, but think about this. If they're digging up dirt, so we cut down some trees, we got some rocks, we're stacking up rocks and dirt. We're digging up the dirt right on our side of the wall, if you will. So as we dig that, we're stacking up the dirt. Eventually, well, maybe you got a little bit of a trench there.
Yeah, a little bit of a trench. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah. All right. So now continue.
Okay, so they do this throughout the entire day. Winds up being very fortunate. Why? Because what our buddy Dan Sickles does right over there has George Meade so freaked out, worried, if you will, that he's going to wind up pulling all the Union men out of McAllister's Woods. He pulls all the Union men off of Lower Culp's Hill, half of the Union men off of Upper Culp's Hill. This is going to be sometime after 5 o'clock. They all leave that area. They come over here to help out Dan Sickles. Some of them actually do. However, more than half of them wind up getting lost. they go down. Somebody makes a wrong turn.
They go shopping at the outlets.
Yeah, they go down to the Baltimore Pike there, so they don't actually do anything. However, so they leave sometimes after 5. Confederate attacks are going to wind up starting pretty late over there. And it's only going to be 3 brigades initially. You're going to have John M. Jones Virginians. You're going to have Jesse Williams Louisianians. And then George Maryland Stewart. He's got a mixed brigade. He's got some Virginians, a large Maryland regiment, and then 2 North Carolina regiments. So all told, you're going to have about 4,700 Confederates who are going to be attacking Green's men only. Green's men are the ones who are left out there, and they're strung out, as you might imagine. They don't even have enough guys to go down to Lower Culp's Hill. So basically, some of Stewart's men just walk on Lower Culp's Hill. They don't even have to fight for it. However, because they started late, at 7 o'clock-ish, if you will, they only have just a little bit over an hour of daylight. And they're attacking up very rough ground, and they're attacking up against guys who have breastworks in front of them, if you will. And so we got 4,700 guys attacking probably 2,400 if you include the Union men who would be on the very upper part of Upper Culp's Hill who fought on day 1. Okay? Those Union men are able to hold. And the reason why they're able to hold is because of the foresight of that one man to build those fortifications on that hill.
George Sears Green.
Yeah. Winds up getting too dark. Those Confederates are going to wind up pulling back. However, throughout the whole night of day 2, the Confederates occupy Lower Culp's Hill.
And when the fighting here on the left of the Union line is completed, do the 12th Corps units return to Culp's Hill that night?
Yes, as this becomes solid, as the Union line with all the reinforcements, with all George Meade's men finally all arriving on the battlefield, he's going to fill in the broken southern part of the Cemetery Ridge line. George Meade's going to order those guys who are on Culp's Hill to go back to that position over there. But by this time, it is dark. They wind up leaving the Baltimore Pike, and they think they're going to go right back to where they were before. I mean, they built these all day. They know where they are. And as they start getting onto the lower Culp's Hill area, Confederates are going to start firing into them. So we got this little firefight going on in the dark. Union men are going to wind up pulling back. They tell their commander, Henry Slocum, the enemy are in our works. And Slocum says, don't worry about it. We're going to drive them out at daylight. So they pull back. And in the meantime, that Union line is being reinforced on Upper Culp's Hill, being fed in from the Henry Spangler Farm Lane, which is just off the Baltimore Pike and leads basically right at the foot of Upper Culp's Hill, if you will. Confederates don't have that, okay? And that's going to be protected by partly by a traverse, which is another set of breastworks that runs perpendicular between Lower and Upper Culp's Hill, which they had the foresight to build that on throughout day 2 as well.
So, that night, July 2nd, Meade holds a council of war.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
The Council of War.
Set up day 3.
Okay, so the Council of War. George Meade, one of the post-war things is, you got these little groups of generals, some guys, everybody doesn't like everybody. These interpersonal relationships are going to wind up forming sides, if you will. And one of the big things that's going to be led by Dan Sickles, Dan Butterfield, and Abner Doubleday, some of those generals, they're going to wind up putting forth the idea or the thought that George Meade wanted to retreat from this battlefield. Okay. However, this meeting that you just spoke of, George Meade's going to call his generals together. Corps commanders, I guess those who are still alive or unwounded, into those headquarters there. He calls together the meeting about 9 o'clock in the evening on day 2. There's going to be a lot of discussion. This meeting does wind up running all the way until well after midnight. Some people say somewhere around 1 o'clock. But the bottom line is this. George Meade just took over this army 3 days before the battle started. He still needs to build that trust between him and his commanders. Look at all the problems he has with Mr. Sickles here today on day 2. So for the next day, he wants to make sure everybody's on the same page. And he's going to wind up posing to them 3 questions. Remember, he calls them together about 9 o'clock in the evening. And these 3 questions that he's going to pose, number 1, do you feel that we should stay? You want me to go through this whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel that we should stay in our present positions or fall back to another one? Number 2, if we stay here, do we attack or do we defend? And number 3, if we stay here and wait for an attack, how long should we wait? Again, after much discussion, this is ours, all those Union generals are in agreement. It's unanimous. They agree they're going to stay in their present positions, okay, no retreating, and they're going to wait 1 day for Lee to attack. George Meade correctly surmised all this ahead of time. 8 o'clock in the evening, he's going to wind up before this meeting happens. He sends a message to be wired back to Henry Halleck, Chief of Staff in Washington, D.C., that they are going to wind up staying in their present positions. However, he doesn't know at this point whether they're going to try to attack or defend the ground that they have.
So he knows they're going to stay, and he just wants his corps commanders to help him decide whether to attack or receive the attack.
I think, well, that was part of it, but he wants to make sure everybody's thinking the same, on the same page.
So basically, I have an idea, and I'm going to ask you what you think without telling you my idea.
Yes.
And hope that you come to the same conclusion I do and think it's your own idea. Is that what he's kind of doing?
I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean,
like
he's
technique.
a leader, but he wants to include them into discussion. Again,
Yeah, that's good.
This wasn't a 10-minute meeting. They were there for hours.
That's why here Meade is the better Army commander than Lee.
Ooh, yeah. Now you're in trouble. Everybody's going to turn you off, pal.
Did you hear the horse even just reacted?
I feel like we knew that already, though.
What, that Meade was better than Lee?
Yeah, I mean...
Well, we did, Eric, but our audience didn't know that. No, our audience wasn't sure, but now they have to know.
It's a big key.
It is sacrilege. But it's true. All right. So, and they decide what? I'm sorry. What I didn't.
They are going to stay, and they're going to wait for one day for the Confederates to attack.
Right. Okay. And that's where we're going to leave it, ladies and gentlemen, because now we're going to talk about day 3 with Bob Steenstra and Deb Novotny from Culp's Hill. And for those of you Pickett's Charge nuts, very little of it is actually going to be about Pickett's Charge, although we do get into it. We're going to focus on the fighting at Culp's Hill because they fought for, 6-7 hours, something like that?
Total about from 4:30 in the morning till about 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's a number that mathematicians haven't even figured out yet. I don't even know how many hours that is.
And if you guys really want to hear Pickett's Charge, you can listen to the 2020 and 2021 anniversary episodes for July 3rd.
Yes, I think we've beaten that horse to death. So if you do really need to hear it, we have our anniversary episodes, like Eric said, from the last 2 years. Joe, thank you for your 2 cents.
It was my pleasure. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So I've always been fascinated. I think day 2 is when it was almost not a sure thing. I think when Wright was sitting up there on Cemetery Ridge, I have the key to the battle in my pocket right now, and he's asking Mahoney for support, and Mahone. I'm going Police Academy.
Yeah.
Mahoney. And Mahone is going, well, it's my orders to guard the baggage train, right? That's what he's saying, I can't come. And Wilcox, instead of countercharging the 1st Minnesota, he decides to get in a dumb idea to get into a firefight with them, because he just could have charged back and swept the 1st Minnesota on the field.
Right.
But I think if all 3 of those brigades would have gotten together, at least those 2, Mahoney, Police Academy again, and Wilcox would have supported Wright, do you think that would have been enough to carry the day? Do you think at that point then Wright would have had the support that he needed because he's got the flank on 2 ends of the army? He split the line. Could that have done it?
There's still nobody on his left. I think if all of Posey's Mississippians and Mahone's Virginians move forward, maybe even who knows, maybe Thomas from Pender's division, who was also down in Long Lane there as well. If they would have came out, that's a substantial amount right there.
Sure.
But they did not.
What's the common denominator with all of these brigades we're talking about?
They're from the south.
They're all in AP Hill's Corps.
Oh,
where is AP Hill?
We don't know. That's a big mystery.
For 3 days.
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
That would
What's
be
he
a
doing?
very
Nursing
short
his
episode
prostate.
if we talked about AP Hill.
Yeah.
And don't forget. Oh, whoa, Joe! I just thought of something.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing that happens. You got to remember that. William Dorsey Pender, he's an excellent commander, however. He gets hit with an artillery shell. 2-inch piece of shell winds up gashing his leg, if you will, a horrible wound, if you will. And he gets taken out late in the afternoon on day 2. He's the one who's in charge of that area there at this point in time. So whenever he goes down, I think James Lane takes over next. Again, so you got these command changes, and then you have missing that lack of leadership. I think if Pender would not have got hit by that piece of artillery shell, I think that maybe it would have been more difficult on that part of, maybe he would have told Thomas's Georgians and Mahone and Posey, get out of the Bliss Farm, go to Wright's aid there on his left.
Truthfully, though, even if they do create a breach, there's nobody in support, so there really isn't anybody to exploit a breach.
Yeah,
but if you have enough of a panic, that might be, and that might be enough.
And it might,
because don't forget the precedent that has been set. Because for the first 2+ years of war, the anytime a Union army comes up against the Confederates, they get beat.
Absolutely.
They fall back to the other side of the river towards Washington or whatever. Okay, but again, granted, they did not hear. But that's the mindset that the Confederates have, that whole idea of invincibility. So you can't take that out of the...
No, you can't.
That's a good point.
I would say it would probably be worth mentioning that, Alpheus Williams' division of the 12th Corps is coming onto the field at roundabout the PA Memorial now.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the 6th Corps here now, and they're right handy. So yeah, there probably is going to be panic to a point, but if you don't have anybody to follow it up,
it's kind of the whole deal with Little
that
Round Top. So just take one piece of it, kind of the same thing. Nobody to follow it up.
Sure. Yeah, right. Well, these are questions that can be debated at smoky bars, if you could still smoke in bars. Smoky bars in someone's basement, at least, for years to come, and they will be. Did you have another one, Joe? Are you raising your hand?
No,
Okay.
no. I think despite what Faulkner said, again, day 2 is where it was really not a sure thing. Every Southern boy should dream about what could have happened on day 2 on Cemetery Ridge instead of day 3.
You should have gone around to the right.
World's longest run-on sentence.
All right. Well, so we're going to go so we don't become the world's longest run-on sentence. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Mike Rupert, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
You were all nervous. You did an excellent job.
All right,
you
thank
didn't
you.
need me feeding you anything. You could have handled it all by yourself. In fact, next year, that's what you're going to do. Otherwise, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I don't have a migraine today, which is nice. I was able to be present in the conversation, and we already recorded tomorrow's episode, so I didn't have a migraine that day either. That's it, folks. Thank you for listening. Happy anniversary, you Getty's nerds. Did you call me Mike?
I'm talking to Mike.
Oh,
I'm talking to Mike.
I thought you were looking at me.
I'm talking to Mike. Of course he called him Mike.
I forgot your name was Mike for a second.
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spa, we'll drink down ale and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt shall go to jail from Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spa, we'll drink down ale and pay the reckoning on the nail.